Well, the top story that we are tracking for you at this hour comes in from Iran. Anti-government protests continue to flare up across the country in Iran, leaving several protesters dead and triggering a communication blockade in parts of the country, as unrest show no signs of abating. According to multiple media reports, at least 62 people have been killed as the demonstrations enter the 13th straight day. The protests, which initially erupted on December 28, 2025, from two markets in Tehran over rising inflation and the steep fall in the value of the Iranian Rial, have since transformed into a nationwide agitation against the Islamic regime. According to the report, demonstrations have spread to 512 locations across 180 cities in all 31 provinces of Iran. Let's in fact take you through some of the visuals that have emerged over the past 24 hours from Iran. Visuals show massive crowds gathering in major cities across Iran, even amidst a brutal government crackdown. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has stated that the Islamic Republic will not tolerate individuals acting as mercenaries for foreign powers. However, reports suggest that crowds actually swelled in many cities despite the government's warning. Now, protesters have also targeted mosques and a seminary, seen as symbols of the Islamic regime. The Masjid al-Rasul mosque was burned down in Sadat Abad area of Tehran. As the protests spread despite the communications blackout, videos have emerged of protesters waving the pre-revolutionary lion and sun flag, a symbol long banned by the state as unrest intensifies. Fires have been seen burning as protesters wave the historic flag in cities including Hamadan, underscoring how the emblem has re-emerged as a defining symbol of resistance. Demonstrators also target the Iranian regime vehicle, which multiple vehicles of security forces were set ablaze by the protesters overnight. In fact, huge crowds of protesters also gathered outside the BBC headquarters in London, speaking up against what they call the international media house's silence on the unfolding unrest. So clearly this is something that we are bringing to you, these fresh visuals. Remember, there is a communications blackout in Iran because the government has enforced that internet should not be available over there, so that protesters cannot communicate with each other and organize themselves. However, people are now out on the streets. We got you those visuals from the last 24 hours. Everyone is either toppling those symbols of the Islamic regime, or they are out on the streets protesting against the government. In fact, the pre-revolutionary flag that had been used before 1979 is being waved by a lot of people. It's being seen as a symbol of resistance. It's seen as something that is uniting everyone. And the son of the last Shah, who is currently in exile, in fact, has now asked the people to come out and protest. He's asked them to come out on the streets and make sure that they speak up against this entire regime, against all the atrocities that the regime has been conducting since the past decades. And it's a very, in fact, clear indication that protests have now massive. In fact, to discuss this further, we have Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, former diplomat, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the broadcast. A very good afternoon to you. Ambassador, if I can come to you with my first question. Obviously, the protests are now enormous. They are spreading across cities. People are also, in fact, demolishing and destroying all the symbols that represented the Islamic Republic over there. Ambassador Gupta, if you can hear us, I wanted your first reaction to how people are now demolishing the symbols of Islamic regime. They are demolishing mosques, they are demolishing the statues of Qasem Soleimani, they are demolishing statues of the supreme leaders because they want the regime gone.
Well, I think it is more of a reaction to the atrocities and hardships which have been committed by the Ayatollah regime over its 45 years rule of the country. And, it is not so much, I think, alienation with Islam as such, but more so with the hardships, the atrocities, the denials of freedom, the economic hardships and so on. Because Islam in Iran was accepted pretty much earlier, around 10th, 11th century. So it has been already there for more or less, 1,000 years. So it is not so much the religion, but the regime, the anger with the regime, the way regime has implemented its policies. It has not allowed the women to to take off the hijab and to come out, and status of equality to women and so on. So it is basically those policies, and of course the economic hardships. An average Iranian only gets $7 in a month at the official exchange rate for his living expenses. Now, how much can you manage in $7? So that is the denial of, that is the hardship that people are facing. They are angry, and the mullahs have failed to improve the economic situation. Of course, the US also has played the role in terms of sanctions on Iran and in terms of denying Iran the possibilities of selling its oil. So those things are also there. It's a pretty complicated story,
Absolutely, Ambassador. In fact, if I can also get your opinion on this entire situation that is currently unfolding between Iran and the US. So, sir, earlier in 1979, it was the US along with other forces that actually ousted the monarchy. But now we are seeing that the US is in support of the protesters. They may not be in support of the son of the Shah, who is actually, also in support of the protesters. He's saying that he will come back to Iran if, there is a regime change. But how do you look at this changing dynamics that is happening between US and Iran? Because now supposedly they are also supporting the monarchy.
Understand that in Iran, it is not so much the regime, supreme leader that I would become very unpopular. Right? The revolutionary guards, IRGC, revolutionary guard force, IRGC has become something like the Pakistan. It runs its own industry, it runs its own commercial complexes, it owns land, it decides on major policies, it's control of missiles program, it is control of the nuclear program, everything. It is control of the supreme leader. So everything that is happening in Iran is controlled by this IRGC. They are the key players.
Right.
So it is very difficult to remove the IRGC because they are backing this regime and they are in complete control
All
of
right.
in terms of the power, in terms of the military power, which is controlling Iran. So it is very difficult to remove the IRGC.
Okay.
So
All right.
it is, if